downloaded it, and they deleted it. Interesting. I gotta talk to them about it. Okay. Okay, where do we leave off? Come on. Okay, what you do is you go to your notes, and what do you do with your notes?
Read.
You look at the last thing you wrote in your notes, right? Folks, this is, when you take real courses here at AUK, which I'm sure you'll be taking plenty of them since you're new here, okay? This is what a teacher expects from you, okay? This is important. You have to develop these good study habits. And if the teacher's not working with you on that, then they're not doing you a service, because you don't suddenly develop good habits overnight, right? Those are things that are learned over time. Okay, so can someone start us up with what was the last discussion we had, or what was the last topic I talked about? Come on, ladies. Okay, I'm waiting. Okay, we can wait all day. Back there, what was the last thing in your notes?
I think it's about the
I think, you know, right? Because you're looking at your notes, right?
Yeah.
And what do your notes say?
rational choice.
Okay, we're talking about rational choice.
Yeah.
Okay? Yeah, because we were talking about what? What chapter were we on? Chapter 6. And what does chapter 6 focus on? Decision making, right? So what we're doing is we're talking about how decisions are made, right? And one of the things that I wanted to emphasize is that decisions are not made in a vacuum. Decisions are made in a context. And they're made in the, people make decisions in the flow of time. Now what does that essentially mean? That means that you have a context, you have conditions that affect your decision making, right? Did we talk about decisions somewhere prior to that table, or context, or conditions? Did we talk about something like that before? That matrix on how decision making, or the different elements of decision making that I put on the board? Didn't we talk about something like that? Sure we did. Funnel. Funnel. If I say funnel, what comes to mind? I say funnel, you say... You guys aren't reading the book. Prior to the table for unbounded, rational, unbounded, comprehensive decision making that's unbounded, right? We had this kind of funnel concept, right? Okay? What was before in your notes? What was listed before? What did you write down before the unbounded comprehensive model? What did I talk about before that? I'm waiting. Come on. Look at your notes. What's telling me is there's going to be a lot of zeros on your notes when I take a look at that. Because obviously you guys aren't doing the notes. Now keep in mind, tomorrow I'm going to email everybody your grades where you are right now. Okay? Which then I'll post, because I believe midterm grades have to be submitted by next week. So they're probably going to be, so I'll probably post them. I'm going to post them probably tomorrow, but they're not going to be seen until, I guess, next week. But you will get an email, as you did before, telling you where you are, right? So you'll have a sense of where you are. Now, getting back to my point. What was now look at, you could, funnel. I say funnel, you say decision, foreign policy, decision making, right? Don't you guys take out your books? Look at your books. Guys, this is not a good sign. And I'm not, of course, this is not on, I'm not taping this. Come on, what's going on here? Okay, I'm waiting.
Well, what was your question?
What I say funnel, you say what? I say funnel, you say foreign policy decision making. What's that up there? Funnel vision? Weren't you guys paying attention when we were talking about that? Okay? And I said decision making does not take place in a context. Right? Where does it take place? I mean, it does not take place in a vacuum. Which means, where does it take place? It takes place in a context and in what? What did I say earlier, a couple seconds ago?
In the flow of time.
In the flow of time, right? So it's important to kind of keep in mind that conditions are very, very important when one tries to kind of understand why decisions are made the way they are. Okay? All right. Tools. Start recording. Okay. So, can I hear myself? Let me see here. Yes, I'm talking. Okay. So, now, where's the flow of time here? How is the flow of time captured in this image, in this figure? Where's it captured? Well, first of all, we're making decisions, okay, and as we're making decisions, we're affected by the context. And what's the context here? What are the factors that are relevant here? We have, what? What's the first one that comes to mind?
The global conditions.
Very good, global conditions. Guys, you got to think. Okay, you got to think, global conditions, right? What's happening in the world affects your foreign policy making, right? When you have that game that we're going to be playing, you'll have essentially a set of events that are taking place, and you have to respond to those events, right? And and one of the things that you're going to have to do as you're going to be playing the game is you got to get in character. You got to learn something about the country that you're going to represent, right? And that's just the country you're going to represent. You're going to be expected to do what? Learn something about the leader that you're representing. So really what you're doing is you're studying, when we get back the first week and a half, you're studying to get ready to play the game. And then you play the game. Okay? And that's a form of learning, because number one, you learn something about the country. You learn something about the people or the position that you have, whoever's in that position. And you are forced to learn about the interrelationship that country have with each other, right? So you would expect Kuwait to collaborate with what other countries? Saudi Arabia, okay? Bahrain, right? You would expect, because you would expect the members of the GCC to have some kind of working relationship, right? Well, you got to learn about that. You got to learn about, and I expect you to behave in that way. Right? Okay? So the first week and a half, when we get back, after you take your test, okay, we're going full steam ahead for 3 weeks. We're going to be doing the game. We're going to be preparing for the game, and we'll be revisiting the whole decision-making structure. We'll be revisiting Chapter 9, which is all about alliances. Okay? These are the kind of things that you're going to be actually asked to do. And as you're playing the game. And it's a different way of, I guess, learning the subject, right? And I think it's a lot more fun. Now, personally, I'd like to have all my tests games, but unfortunately here at AUK, you got to do things one step at a time. So I just have one game. Ultimately, maybe I'll have 2 games and 1 test. Okay? Now, getting back to, so I say funnel, you could say I say vision, or I say decision making. So we have these inputs, right, that affect the policy. You have inputs into the process, and then you have outputs. And these inputs are basically affected by global conditions. Another type of constraint would be the actor's internal characteristics, right? So we have actors as they relate to okay, the nation states, right? What kind of conditions are in place, right? Okay, that affect the decision making. In a democratic society, typically we have two-level games, right? You have domestic realities and we have international realities, right? So here we have global conditions would be the international realities, then we have domestic conditions, and then we have the people that are at the helm, the leaders, okay? Whether leaders in terms of the nation state, which is essentially everyone is following the lead individual, or you can have leadership in terms of the type of individuals in a nation state. How do they approach foreign policy? Do they take a more active approach? Or are they a little more kind of apprehensive before they jump into the game?
When you say international realities, what do you mean exactly?
Well, let's say, for example, international realities. Let's take a look at what's happening with Iran. Okay? You know, why do you think Israel is so concerned about Iran, at least, why is Israel so concerned about Iran being able to achieve nuclear capability? Why? Okay, what do you mean by threat?
Iran will have more power.
Iran will have more power, right? Because right now, what country, right, today, there's only one country in this region that has nuclear capabilities, and that's who? In this region. Well, Iran hasn't gotten there yet. Israel. So you talk about the balance of power, can anybody really take on Israel in this part of the world? No. The last time there was a threat was when Syria and Egypt worked together. Okay? And under Henry Kissinger, when he was Secretary of State, what did the United States do? They separated the two countries, right? They were able to bring Egypt to the other side, right? And as soon as they were able to get Egypt to sign a treaty with Israel, that pretty much isolated Syria. Okay? Syria on its own is not a threat to Israel. At that time, Syria plus Egypt was a formidable threat. Okay? So the whole objective was to do what? Isolate Syria, and that's what they were able to do. Now getting back to the threat. So from Israel's point of view, as soon as Iran achieves this nuclear state of the nuclear capability, is able to achieve nuclear capability, now that's changed the balance of power within the region. Okay? Does Israel think, okay, Iran would use its a nuclear bomb against Israel?
No.
Well, that's a good one, because we really don't know. Because the rhetoric, okay, you know, depending on who you talk to, some people say, yeah, they would. Others privately say, no, they won't. Because if they do use it against Israel, what's going to happen? Israel's going to respond, right? And so in other words, this is now deterrence theory. The whole point of the nuclear arms race, the reason why the United States and the Soviet Union were building all these nuclear bombs that could destroy the world 10 times over, wasn't because they were planning on using it, but because they wanted to maintain the balance of power. Because if you adopt realist theory, if I become stronger than you, what does that do? Does that increase or decrease the probability that I will attack you? Increase. So you have to kind of maintain that balance, including building more and more bombs, right? So the question you have to ask yourself, would Iran use its weapons against Israel? And that, you know, that's the million-dollar question, obviously, right? But the point is, if they did use it, they would invite what? A retaliatory strike that would pretty much obliterate parts of Iran, right? This whole place, this whole region would go into total disarray, right? The whole issue of oil would just, I mean, it's just mind-boggling what would happen. Yeah.
Professor?
Yeah.
Can the UN or the US stop anyone from making nuclear bombs, or is it just like?
Well, you know, when you say stop nuclear, you know, what does that mean?